I never expected to die that day. It was a quiet Thursday morning, the kind that feels like any other. My name is Henry Cole, and I'm a 56-year-old delivery driver from Des Moines, Iowa. I served years ago in Afghanistan, and ever since I came home, life's been a mix of noise and silence. People, traffic, long hours, but also those lonely moments in the cab of my truck where only your thoughts keep you company. That day, I had pulled over at a rest stop just outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. I wasn't feeling right. There was a tightness in my chest that I tried to ignore, but it got worse, like a hand gripping my heart. I remember reaching for my water bottle and dropping it. Then everything went black. I don't remember hitting the floor. I just remember the silence. This silence was full, thick, like I had stepped out of time. Then came a feeling I can't fully explain. It wasn't fear. It was like I was being held, not by hands but by something kind and warm. I felt peace even though I didn't know where I was. I could still think, but not with my brain. My thoughts were clearer, more real. It was like I had been living underwater and suddenly came up for air. I looked down and saw my body. It was just lying there in the truck. My face was pale, eyes closed, still. And for a moment I didn't feel sad about it. I felt free, lighter than air. But then something pulled me gently upward. I wasn't flying, but I was moving, and I wasn't alone. The light around me changed. It wasn't a blinding light, but soft, golden, alive. I could feel it touching my soul. It was like being inside a hug that never ends. I felt love, pure, endless love, and I hadn't even seen anyone yet. Just that love alone made me cry. And I don't cry easily. I knew deep down that I had left the earth. I was in a place where nothing could be hidden, not even your deepest thoughts. But I wasn't afraid. I felt known, completely known, and still loved. Then I saw him. At first, I didn't recognize him by face. I knew him by his presence. The moment he stepped into view, I just knew. It was Jesus. His eyes didn't just look at me, they looked through me. And all I felt was love. He didn't accuse. He didn't condemn. He just stood there with peace flowing from him like light, like music that sings straight into your heart. He spoke without moving his lips. And when he did, it shook me. He said my name. Henry. Just hearing him say my name broke something in me. I fell to my knees not because I was forced to, but because I couldn't stand in that kind of love. It was overwhelming, gentle, pure. I felt like a child again, small but safe, seen but not judged. He said, "I want to show you something." And then, just like that, the light changed again. We were no longer standing in the warm light. It faded and something new unfolded around us. It was like I was floating, but I could still feel the ground somehow. Jesus was beside me, though he wasn't walking. He just was. And I was being shown something, not a vision, not a dream, but something real. I was being taken somewhere. I saw a land that looked familiar and strange at the same time. I realized after a few moments that it was America, but not how we see it on maps. It was more like seeing the heart of the nation, its soul. And it was hurting. There were cracks running through it like deep cuts in the ground. Some were dark and full of smoke. I heard shouting not from mouths but from spirits, anger, fear, pride, division. People weren't speaking to each other, they were yelling past each other. I saw crowds holding signs, fists in the air, their faces twisted in rage. Some people were dressed in red, others in blue, but their eyes all had the same emptiness behind them. Jesus spoke again softly. "This is the battle." I looked up at him. I didn't understand. He knew my thoughts. "Not a battle of governments," he said, "but a battle of hearts. This nation is not dying because of laws or leaders. It's being torn apart by the sickness in the heart." I wanted to speak, but I couldn't. I felt sorrow deep in my soul. I could feel what he felt. The grief, the longing. Not for control, but for healing. Jesus wasn't angry. He was heartbroken. Then he raised his hand and I saw two roads appear. One on the left, one on the right. They were wide at first, but then they began to split further and further apart. On the left path, I saw rage, bitterness, people shouting in the streets, breaking windows, hurting each other with words and weapons. But underneath it all was fear, a fear that whispered lies into their ears. "You are alone. You must fight to survive. No one will protect you. Hate is your shield." On the right path, it looked calmer. People were gathered together in small groups, praying, helping each other, crying and hugging. I saw people of different races holding hands. I saw strangers forgiving strangers. The path wasn't easy, It was narrow and some parts were uphill, but there was light on it and the people on it had peace even in their tears. Jesus turned to me again. These are the two choices before every heart. Not just the nation's heart, but each person's heart. I felt like he was showing me my own soul now. Every angry thought I had, every time I stayed silent when I could have stood for love, every judgment I had passed on someone, I could see it all. But he wasn't condemning me. He was helping me understand that the war out there was also in here inside of me. He said, healing doesn't begin in the White House. It begins in the human heart, in repentance, in forgiveness, in love that costs something. Tears rolled down my face. I didn't even try to wipe them. I wanted to ask him, what can I do? I'm just one man. But he already knew. You're not just one, he said. You carry me. Wherever you go, you carry this light. Speak it. Live it. Let others see it in you. That's how nations heal, one heart at a time. The image of the two roads stayed in my mind as the vision began to fade. But I knew the message had been planted in me like a seed. It was alive. And then I felt the pulling again, pulling me back to the world I had left. I didn't want to leave. That's the honest truth. Even though I knew my body was weak, even though life back on earth had been hard and confusing at times, I didn't want to go back. I was with Jesus. I was in peace. I was home. But as the light started to fade around us, I felt something deeper than my own wish, purpose. He hadn't told me I had to return. He didn't force me. But I knew. I just knew it in my spirit. My time wasn't finished yet. Before I could even say anything, he looked at me with eyes that still haunt me, in the most beautiful way. Full of sadness, full of strength, full of hope. Then he reached toward me, not to touch me but to place something inside me. I can't explain it. It was like fire and light all at once, but not the kind that burns. It filled me with courage, but it also made me tremble. Like I was holding something much greater than myself. I will be with you, he said. And then just like that, I was back in the dark. I woke up in a hospital bed. My chest hurt like a truck had run over it. I could barely breathe and my throat was dry. A nurse noticed my eyes open and called for a doctor. I had no idea how long I had been out, but they later told me I had been rushed in after someone at the truck stop noticed I hadn't moved for hours. I had suffered a massive heart attack and underwent emergency triple bypass surgery. The fact that I was alive didn't make sense, not medically, not in the doctor's words. But I wasn't confused. I knew exactly why I was still breathing. In the days that followed, I was quiet. Not because I didn't want to talk, but because everything around me felt so loud and small at the same time. The television, the noise, the news, it all sounded like echoes compared to what I had just come from. I could still feel his presence. Even in that hospital room, I knew he was near. I began to remember every word he said, every image I saw. I started writing it all down. I couldn't sleep much at night, not because of pain, but because the fire inside me wouldn't let me rest. I had to share this, not in anger, not as a warning, but as a lifeline, because I had seen what's at stake, and I had seen the way back. One nurse asked me if I had seen anything on the other side. I looked at her and said, yes. I saw love himself. She didn't say anything, but tears welled up in her eyes. She squeezed my hand. That was the first time I realized something. People are hungry for hope. They are starving for truth, but not the kind shouted on screens. They're aching for the quiet truth that comes from a real encounter with God. I was just a man with a simple job. A former soldier, a driver, a sinner like anyone else. But now I carried a message far greater than myself. And I knew I couldn't keep it to myself. When I got out of the hospital, everything looked different. It was like the world hadn't changed, but I had. The trees looked brighter. The sky felt deeper. Even the faces of strangers walking past me in the grocery store meant something to me now. I couldn't explain it, but I felt their pain. I felt their hunger, the kind of hunger no food could fix. I didn't rush back to driving. I needed time. Not just to heal my body, but to understand what God had done in me. I walked slowly, breathed slowly, prayed a lot. I would sit on my porch for hours, just watching the wind move the trees and listening for his voice. And I'll tell you something, he does speak. Not always in thunder. Sometimes just in the stillness when everything else is quiet. I started sharing my story with a few people at my church. Then someone invited me to a small group. Then another person asked me to come speak at a local veterans gathering. Before I knew it, I was standing in front of people. Me, a quiet man who used to avoid the spotlight, telling them about the day I died and met Jesus. And the part that broke me every time? It was when I told them that he still cares. That even with all the mess in the world, every fight on the internet, every cruel headline, every lie and twisted truth, Jesus hasn't walked away from us. He's still right here, grieving with us, waiting for us to open the door. People would cry. Not because I was a great speaker, I'm not, but because something in them recognized the truth. We've all felt it. The loneliness. The wondering if God's still near. And when I told them he never left, I could feel walls falling in the room. One night, after speaking at a church in Omaha, an older man came up to me. He was shaking, tears running down his face. He told me he hadn't prayed in over 30 years, that he thought God had given up on him. Then he looked me right in the eyes and said, "But if he came for you, maybe he'll come for me too." I grabbed his hands and said, "Friend, he already has. That's why you're standing here." I've seen it again and again, people waking up. Not in their minds but in their hearts. Husbands asking their wives for forgiveness. Teens laying down their hatred and picking up hope. Even enemies learning how to listen again. I'm not saying it's easy. Every day we wake up in a world full of noise, full of reasons to be bitter or afraid. But I keep remembering what Jesus showed me, that the real war isn't out there. It's in here. In our hearts. And if we let him in, if we let love in, that changes everything. Not overnight. Not all at once. But one life at a time. And that's why I keep telling this story. Not because it's about me, it's not. I'm just the truck driver who died and got a second chance. This story is about him. About the Savior who still walks with us. Who still believes in us. Who still calls each of us by name. Just like he called mine. It's been almost 2 years since that day. Some people ask me if I ever doubt what I saw. If maybe it was just a dream or something my mind made up while my heart was giving out. And I always tell them the truth. No. I don't doubt it. Not even for a second. Because nothing in this world could have created what I felt there. That kind of love, pure, weightless, burning, holy, doesn't come from the mind. It comes from the Maker. And once you've stood in that light, once you've heard him speak your name, you're never the same. I'm still not perfect. I still struggle some days. I get tired. I get quiet. But there's something inside me now that wasn't there before. It's not just faith, it's fire. And it keeps me going. I think about my country a lot. I think about how broken things seem, how divided we've become. But I also remember what Jesus showed me, that the real healing doesn't start with politicians or protests. It starts when one heart turns back to him. You don't have to be a preacher. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. Willing to forgive someone who hurt you. Willing to speak the truth when it's easier to stay silent. Willing to show kindness to someone who believes the opposite of you. Willing to love even when it costs you something. That's how we change the world. Not with noise, but with light. I've learned that you don't need to be famous to carry God's message. You just need to be faithful. You just need to carry it in your voice, your hands, your actions, wherever you go. Whether you're driving a truck, washing dishes, raising kids, or sitting alone in a quiet room, you matter. You're part of his plan. And if you're hurting right now, if you feel forgotten or lost or full of questions, please hear me when I say this. You are not alone. You are not too far gone. And Jesus hasn't given up on you. He's closer than your next breath. And he's still calling your name. Thank you for listening to my testimony. If it spoke to your heart in any way, I want to invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to the channel, not just so you don't miss more testimony like this, but so you stay connected to a message that's real, honest, and full of hope. We're in this together. One heart at a time. Until next time, keep walking in the light.